All right, welcome to our podcast. We're back here with a special guest today. His name is Sam Gill, and we are super excited to have him. He's got a super cool process that was basically downloaded and given to him, and that Dayna and I have both had a really cool experience in it with him. And so we have him here today, and we're going to talk all about that process, some of our own experiences with him, and how this kind of all came about. So we were just talking about the name of it, Sam. So if you wouldn't mind repeating what the name of it is again, and then we'll kind of start to talk about what it actually is.
Yeah, so the thank you, Dana. So yeah, the and Dana. So thank you. Yeah, the name of the process is called MTVR, and it stands for micro tuning vibrational reality. So it's kind of like a laser focused way of tuning the vibrational reality to from one vibrational reality to another vibrational reality.
Would you say that it would be something that like stuck patterns is probably like the first thing that comes into my brain, obviously, where someone's like, I don't know why I can't let this go, and yet I want to choose something different.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit how it works. So what happens is you have dense energy in your aura field. And the dense energy that's in your aura field, it turns out it's very chatty. And what it does is it pushes thoughts into your brain, the thoughts that you can't get rid of, that you're like, I don't want that thought. I don't want to think that thought. And you just, nothing you do can get rid of it. You can't silence it. You can't quiet it. You try to meditate. Maybe you can get your mind a little calm and then you pop out of meditation and you're like, it's back again. And you can't, like, it's there. And so it turns out that these thoughts aren't actually your thoughts. They're just the thoughts that are generated from the dense energy that's in your field. And so what this technique does is it allows me to go into your field and by targeting the thoughts that are in your mind. So when you just hold the intention to hold that thought, you can feel it in your body. When you feel it in your body, it targets the dense energy that's in your field, and then I have ability to go and change, modify that dense energy from a low vibrational of the dense energy to a high vibrational energy, and then flip you to a new vibrational reality where that never occurred. And so that's kind of like the beauty of the technique. And it was given to me, like as you said, isn't a download. So I wrote a piece of music asking for, hey, I want to be supported or I want to feel like I'm supported. And that's what I thought I was gonna get, just like a nice little happy music track. And it turned out I don't know, somehow accidentally I downloaded a Akashic Records into a music track and went to sleep 5 hours later, woke up, and like all of a sudden, in the first time that I was quiet enough to meditate, like this process just dropped in and I could see it in vivid 3D exactly. It was like about 2.5 years worth of, I would say, stuff that had been slowly filtering in, you know, just like little bits and pieces that had just been flowing in, but no connecting them. And then
Right.
in
Yeah.
this moment, like, must have been like within 5 or 10 minutes, like all of a sudden, I understood how to glue everything together and make it work. So it
Oh,
wasn't
that's
like
super cool.
so it wasn't like it was anything new. It was like I knew all the information, like a YouTube video here, an Instagram video here, reading this article here, like something I'd been downloaded, something I got channeled, like all of it sort of just piled together. And all of a sudden it was like, ta-da, a formed thing. It was like instead of all these plastic pieces, it was like, oh my gosh, it's built. Like that's what it looks like.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's really it's neat. I know Dana and I both have had this awesome experience with you, and if you're open to talking a little bit about your experience, Dana, too, like I think it was just so cool for both of us because we're all so intuitive, we're all, highly connected in our own ways. And I remember sitting down with you, Sam, and I was so excited by all of this. And I remember you telling me, hold that thought, and within 10 to 20 seconds, you started doing your thing. I couldn't even remember what you told me to hang on to. Like now I'm like grasping at air. I'm like, I don't understand. I can literally can't even remember what he told me to hang on to as an intentional thought, like within 10 to 20 seconds. And it was just a really cool shift. Like how much I could just feel like you literally went from, that well, I like to call it kind of like that collective chatter too, where if the collective kind of feels one way, it often will kind of penetrate into thoughts and stuff. But it was like this notion of almost seeing more clearly, like the waters just got clearer all of a sudden and everything just got still. And it was like, oh, I don't even remember what he told me to hang on to, but apparently it really wasn't important and I'm not supposed to remember it anyway, you know? And I honestly, still to this moment, I still can't remember what exactly you told me as an intentional thought to hang on to. Like, I've tried to think about it. I've tried to bring it back. I've tried to see if I could remember it, and I just can't. Like, it's just long gone. And I honestly don't remember it. Like, I don't remember how I felt before it. I don't remember how I was feeling even in like that exact moment. All I can remember is what happened after. And so that was really cool for me because like that is not really an experience I don't think I personally have ever had with anybody else, but to see it like literally happen before your own face and your own body was really, really cool for me. So I don't know what your experience was like, Dan, but like that's all I can remember from mine.
And that in itself makes it really interesting, like to gauge any impact it has and hasn't had, because it literally wipes that experience from your reality, right? Like I can't remember what the thought was. I can't remember what I was experiencing that was I was creating based on that thought and dense energy because it's gone. So I can't even tell you if it's not impacting my reality anymore because it literally never existed, right? Like that's how crazy it is. So I also cannot tell you what thoughts we worked on. Like, it's interesting that this is the timing of being here today with Sam, not to get off course, but I would argue I have some super dense energy in my field for a little bit of time now. So I'm like, this is interesting timing. However, yeah, I also couldn't tell you what it was we did when we were on the call. And what I will say is before we got on this call, you were talking a little bit, Sam, about how it wipes the charge, right? Um, out. And I've really been in a space of for the most part, really neutral, no charge with a
Mm.
lot of life. Um, and so if I'm like thinking back, I feel like that is potentially one of the, whatever that thought was, I'm having a ton of neutrality in my life now and no charge about most things that in the past I had a lot of charge about. So I feel like that could be somehow a direct correlation. But again, like I couldn't tell you. I mean, maybe you remember, Sam, not that you want to bring it up again, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, I remember some stuff. I try to write and make notes like when I did it, so I probably have notes somewhere I could go back to and take a look. But yeah, that's kind of one of the things that happens is like, you know, these so there's a reason for the dense energy being in your field, right? It's like it's not there for nothing. Like there's a new like an actual reason. And it actually there's like it's kind of crazy because like um like what kind of happened 2.5 years ago is I like ran into this idea. It was like another download that happened. Like I connected to Saint Germain, and he's like over the archangel over the United States. And I connected to him by reading a book and someone mentioning something. I don't know. I like flipped right to the page, read like, I don't know, not even a half a chapter. And like all of a sudden got this stuff that looks like Tetris. And it just started hitting my head. And I was like, oh, I wonder if I can channel this into a track. So I like wrote this piece of music and channeled that in there. And I again fell asleep, woke up some 5 6 hours later and just had this download again. You know, and this is like the first one that like really happened like that. And it was just this concept, like a so it's like a thought form concept that gets channeled, and you just kind of have to unpack it, right? And it's sometimes it takes hours to unpack it. And it was that everyone heals everyone. And it was that the epidemics that we have that are happening is basically what happens is like someone raises their hand, they says, I want to try that. I think I'll fix it, right? And so they go and they raise their hand, and then they go and they try to fix it, and they get stuck because the trauma's too big, right? And so someone else says, okay, I'll fix it, I'll fix it. And then, you know, same thing happens and they get stuck. And then all of a sudden you have like an epidemic of like a problem in the world that just everywhere you look, everybody has the problem. Very few people are escaping it, and people are just stuck in it, right? And if you go back in history and you look, you can see how that like that happened. Like there was these epidemics, and then all of a sudden the epidemics stopped happening, and all of a sudden something new came in, and then, and then there'd be another epidemic, and then all of a sudden that would get resolved, and then a new paradigm would come in, right? I mean, think about it, like, hundreds of years ago, like you couldn't just go out and own your own house or own your own land, right? Or start your own business, like forbidden, right? Now, like everybody can do it, right? But that was like the same thing, like an epidemic, like no one could do it. So what happens is the dense energy, it is part of something that's even greater. And the thing that's behind the dense energy is what I call the solved equation. And so what happens is when the solved equation is you have multiple pieces of dense energy. And when you solve multiple pieces of dense energy, then the equation, the solved equation gets solved. And when that gets solved, it's like the reason for the dense energy to be in your system, it doesn't have a purpose anymore. And when I've worked with some people that have done a lot more energy work in their lives, or they're just a lot older, and so they've naturally done more energy work, like I get a certain feeling when I work with them, and I get this, it's like a feeling of solved energy. And it's just kind of like if you imagine a ton of static energy, in me it forms around my legs. So when I'm working with them, all of a sudden it's like there's this extra like foot of energy that surrounds both of my legs. And I go like, oh, this is solved energy. And that stuff is so cool because you just like, and it's like it's gone. And it's like, yeah, that took nothing. And it's like, you can't get rid of it, but this technique, it's like that's 5 seconds. It's like pulling off a sheet. It's like there's no resistance to it anymore. But when somebody's like half working through it, there's more resistance, right? So what that means is that there's dense energy that's there, but that dense energy is like really anchored in, like it's really like stuck. But when all of it's virtually completed, then it turns into the solved energy, and then the whole thing just pops out. And it does amazing things when you get to that. Like that level is just like it's instant transformations. It's just stuff that's just happening left and right. But yeah, I mean, so it's the thing is that like as the thing is we also have like this resonance, right? And so like whenever I work on one person and I resolve that energy is also resolved in every other person that has the same resonance, right? So every time that this technique happens, no matter who it happens on, everybody connected with that same resonance, right? So eventually there'll be a point where the only thing I ever get is solved energy because all the dense energy will eventually be done, and all of those traumatic things that happen to create it are gone, right? So the reason for the solved energy being there is because other galactic systems, other celestial systems, they needed those equations because they can't experience that, right? Like on
Right.
Earth, it's one of the places where you can experience fear. Well, that fear has generated, so if you want to think of it that way, the fear has generated the dense energy. That's why we have to deal with it because we're helping other galaxies, other systems, other planetary, bodies to resolve these things so they don't ever have it in their culture. So it's this kind of like this working solution. So really like the Hitchhiker's Guide, they had something there, except the answer wasn't 42. But but it's the same idea, right? That there actually are equations that are
Yeah.
going on all the time, and we're actually working. It's just we're not aware of it. So, like this technique helped me to become aware of what we're doing, right? And so, since we're all connected to each other, it's like I can feel the resonance in someone else. That's how the mirroring happens. Is I can feel the resonance within their body. I can feel it in my body. So when I resolve it, I can feel it resolved in my body as well. And so that's how I know when it's done, because like that's the gift that it's built up in me. And so it's just there's a lot to it, and it's like it just happens. But it's like, yeah, you can have that experience where you can't remember it anymore. You can have the experience where all of a sudden you say the same thing. And I don't know, one lady, she like what was it, she was a sociophobe. Like she didn't want to be around anybody. In fact, we were on this event and she's like, I had to get off, I couldn't be on the event. And I was like, let me just give you a call. And I like called her up and I was like, hey, let me just can you just hold I can't be around people, for just, just hold it in your mind. And and I did the work order and she started giggling and then she started laughing. And then I was like, well, can you hold the thought in your more? And she's like, what thought? I can't remember. And then she's like laughing hysterically. And I was like, well, I mean, what about the social anxiety? You still have that anymore? And she's like, what social what? And I'm like, it was gone, right? So it's like it's funny. It's the reactions are funny sometimes, depending on what happens or how it goes. And it's kind of different for everybody, but like really the hardest thing is to figure out what it is that you want to get rid of, because sometimes if it's like fingers, right? And you're like chopping off a finger and you're chopping off another finger and you're like, how many fingers do you have? It's like, it's like, and then sometimes you get down to a wrist and then sometimes you get to a root. And so it's like that's what takes the longest time is trying to figure that out. And some people, have that figured out like a lot more. Like I remember I was working with Dayna and I was like, okay, I was like we're going, this is we're progressing, and then she's like, well, wait, I got this really deep one, and I'm like, now you tell me, like, why do we start with that one? Like,
Well, it's funny because I feel like that's part of what's up right now.
oh yeah,
You talk about working through, and I do remember doing multiple things, but I feel like it's that something is blocking me from my gifts and from source. And I
okay,
feel like we worked on some version of that previously. So it's interesting that you bring up the fingers and the wrist and the tree and the root, right? It's such a great example, but we did multiple things prior to that also. I do remember we were on quite long.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, right? Like, so some of this is like all energy work has sort of the same thing. If you say like here's the thought I want, all of the energy in your body will align to that thought, right? But then you could say, well, what about this other thought? And then all of a sudden the energy will completely change, and then it's just that thought. And I was like, man, it would be so great if you could just say, okay, all thoughts, just show me all the thoughts. I haven't got that one
Whatever's
yet.
not serving me.
I know all of them. Just wipe them out. But unfortunately, some of this stuff's like a little bit of an onion, right? So you kind of like kill the first layer, and then it's like all of a sudden it's like the next layer emerges, and then you kind of like work on that layer, and then you're like the next layer emerges, and I'm like, okay, can I just get to the bottom layer? Like just chop them all. Like, but
Well,
then
and
say
a
what?
you bring up a good point that it's like other energy work because you are trained in a lot of things. Like, I don't even know all of what you're trained in, but I know you have a lot of training. So do I. So does Dayna, right? Like, that's just a thing. When we all do it in our own way, it's not our first rodeo. And so, yeah, I think that ultimately we're all like that's the integrity and the intention, right? To help people is getting to those roots as much as possible and coming at it from all directions. So it's I think that's why this is so exciting too, because you don't have to have the story.
Yeah.
Like you're
Yeah.
that you're talking about it. There's
Mhm.
no story. It's simply dense energy, right?
That's it.
And it's just linked to the thought. And I think that's like, I think there's a part of like my team has come in, they're like, everybody needs to understand and know, like, you still have to do some kind of work with this, even with Sam. You can't just be like, come in and fix me, like, I want you to
Well,
get rid of all my stuff. You still have to have a somewhat of an awareness of something, of a thought or anything like that. You have to be willing enough to still kind of look at a few things. But it's like that still notion, like, someone's still got to be open to doing it, right? Because I mean, like, if somebody comes and they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm really not ready to let that go. Sam, like, you've already kind of mentioned it and been like, hey, can you hold that thought a little bit better? Like, I can't quite get all this out for you yet, right? And it's a notion too, where I'm like, Zara just kind of came in and said, it's one of those things that every single one of our journeys is going to be different, and that's the thing about it too, is like, yes, Dayna and I maybe had the same kind of effect where we couldn't remember what it was that we actually were doing in that moment in time, but that was how it was kind of just supposed to be for ourselves in that point in time. I guarantee if we all did it with you again, it was probably going to have a different kind of outcome, right? It's just going to
yeah.
be dependent on where we're all at. But I think that it's a really cool dynamic of bringing it all back together, of remembering like we are all one. And so that is something I often teach with people I work with a lot of the time, is like, remember, you're not just doing it for yourself. You're actually doing this to help, everybody else in the collective as well. even if you feel like it's like your own big challenge you're trying to work through, you know, but by resolving that, you know, allows for new space, right? Different things to come into our collective, different ways of being, different things to actually change on our planet into different things that actually are helping humanity rather than us to, you know, destroying ourselves in certain ways right now, right? So I think it's really cool that you were able to see that you've had all these fractionated pieces. That's actually been something that's come up in a few of my readings lately. Well, I have this and I have this and I have this and I have this, and I don't know, I feel like it's still just like chaos. Like I don't know why I have all this stuff, right? And it's like, yeah, but you're getting to a point where it's likely all going to come together at some point in time. And I can't help but feel like even doing stuff like this with you could bring some more of that clarity picture for certain people as well. Like maybe they do have a bunch of different pieces. All of a sudden something gets resolved with that dense energy, and now they have the solution to what all these pieces were even for themselves, right?
Well, okay, so that's what happens. So the one of the magical things, you give me so many things to talk about, like 2 hours long podcast, like part 2, 3, 4, 5 to 6.
We can do a series. It's fine.
Yeah, we have a first series.
Whole series. So like it's a good thing that you talk about it, because it's one of the things that happens in when you remove the dense energy and you change it to lighter, higher frequency vibration. What happens is it raises your whole vibration altogether. And when it changes you to another vibrational reality, so like we took the dense energy, we moved it to high vibrational energy, and then we move you to a new vibrational reality. When that happens, it's instant integration. So there's no time, but you're not used to it, right? So now all of a sudden you can access higher consciousness thoughts that you didn't know were there because you couldn't access them because the dense energy was holding you down. Right? So if you think of like yourself being a balloon and you've got like these weights on you, and all of a sudden now you're 10 feet higher and you're like, wow, I didn't know I could see this, but you're still looking down because you haven't been trained to like look up, right? So it's like you're holding onto the balloon and you're still looking down and you're like, wait, I can't see my feet. Wait, that's scary. Like, you know, and it takes a little bit of getting used to like your mind, like trying to catch up with it. Because even though your vibrational reality has changed, like your mind is still like, it takes a little bit of time for the mind to go like, oh wait, there's new thoughts here. Oh wait, I don't have to do it like that anymore. This thought that was tugging me to sabotage everything I was doing isn't there. What do I do when I'm not sabotaging it? I don't know. I've never thought about that. Like, it's like, so these new thoughts come, and sometimes, it's like I was working with this one girl, she was young, and she's like, it's empty. And I was like, well, that's good. And she's like, I didn't know that was gonna happen. And I was like, it was a shock. It was like there was just nothing there. It's like, what do I fill it with? How about something good? Just throw something good in there. Whatever it is you want, just fill it up with good stuff, and so sometimes it's like it's like, more self-love is a good thing to fill it with. Add in some white, purple, gold light, whatever you want, just like keep pouring it in, and just fill it up with more self-love. What do you want to do? It's like the biggest question is like, well, what do you want to do? And it's like, well, what do you desire to do? It's like, that's the thing, just follow that, right? But the thing is, the dense energy, it stops you from believing that you could do it. Well, when you pull the dense energy out, then all of a sudden you're free to do it. And you're like, you mean I can do it? Are you sure? Like, really? It's like you go into the grocery store and your mom's like, you can buy whatever you want. Anything? Like,
Yeah, and you're like, I don't know, Mom. Now that you gave me the freedom, I don't know if I want.
what do I do with it? You need anything?
Yeah.
Well, what's anything? I've never tried that before. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's just like, one of the things is like you say with like manifesting, you're like, I want it to happen now, right? And then it's like, okay, so if I took a plate of food that was the most yummiest food and I put it in front of you and I said, okay, manifest it now, and it just snaps into your stomach. It's like, well, would that be fun or not? Or would you rather, take the process of, okay, I got to cut it. My gosh, this is tedious, and then I got to, stick it into my mouth. Oh, wait, that actually tastes good. Maybe this is okay, or just snap your fingers and it just jumps into your stomach, like, it's like, so it's like, yeah, I mean, sometimes you just want to like chop it all off, but sometimes it's like, okay, well, maybe you want to notice the subtleties and like savor the experience of the transformation and the change, right? Like what is that experience like, right? Like how does that, come about? How does the transformation come about? And just kind of notice those changes because they happen so fast. Even in 3 months or 6 months, it can be relatively fast, like
Yeah.
what you can do in a life when you're not stuck in the patterns and all of a sudden they're just wiped out. Like you can really do a lot, like very quickly. And then it's like it's hard, and it's like the thing I say, it's you know like I used to think about it a lot, like all the time, and I'd be like, you know what, your life's not really magical, because like you're always living it. And it's not like your life just becomes magical. Like one day you wake up and you're like, wow, it feels magical. But the only way you know it is like other people go and they go like, wow, how did you do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? I got up, I ate breakfast, and they're like, but no, but seriously, like, how did you go from here to here? Well, I don't know. Everything happened the same day. I got up, I ate breakfast, and I just did what I did. But what did you really do? No, seriously. It's like
Well,
there's
because it becomes a part of our life, right? Like it just
exactly.
becomes a part of our being and the way we are. And I've had the same thing happen to me where they're like, I don't understand how you did that all in 1 year. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like I
Yeah.
just like I did it. You could do it too if you started to take the same actions that I did. I don't know. Like, but it's that notion because it's incomprehensible to the other people that maybe aren't available to believe that they can do it.
Yeah, so you just have to kind of get comfortable with, the idea that your life is really not going to be magical, but you're just going to move towards more preferences that you want.
But I think that's what makes it magical. Like if you truly want to believe it gets to be magical, then you will see like magical things kind of happen in your daily, even if it looks simplistic, but all of a sudden it's like you get to see the connection or you start to see the magic that happens in connection. And then that's what people I often will see referred to as like magical or the synchronicities of the universe, where it's like, oh man, I just feel like I'm with everything, and that's what I think where people might describe it as magical because
Yeah,
it's the sensation of being in it all.
right. So when you're like, hey, I want to manifest it like this, and this, what you do is by manifesting it quickly, you forget to savor.
Yes.
And when you forget to practicing the savor and you get all the things that you manifested, then you're like, well, I don't know. I manifested all the stuff I want, but I don't know why I'm not happy. And it's like, you're not happy because you have to savor it.
You didn't
So
enjoy the process.
the process. So sometimes it's like, it's okay that it took a little bit longer because it helped you enjoy how to get there. It's like I said, like, one of the things I used to say all the time would be like, it's not about getting to the destination, it's about how you get to the destination. Like you're going to get to the destination, like if there's a desire in your mind, like it's going to happen, like that desire is going to happen, like there's no doubt about it. Like the reason the desire is there is because it was put there so you would head to it, because you would have the awareness of it, because by the time you're already headed in the direction of your desire, that's when you become aware of it while you're already in the process of going towards it. So the desire, it's not like you just all of a sudden get this desire and go, oh, I think I'm going to head toward it. It's like you're already heading toward it when you become aware that you're heading toward it. You just don't know that you're heading toward it. And then the process is learning to savor it, because if you have joy in the moment, then by the time you get to the destination, you'll retain and enjoy that joy. Right. But if you're like fighting, like I was, in my earlier years, like resisting the whole way, just resisting the whole way, then what'll happen is you get there and you're just like, you don't think anything of it, and you just completely take it for granted that you were ever
Next
there.
thing, next thing, next
Yeah,
thing.
you just
Yeah.
move to the next thing and you're like, man, I should have really enjoyed it. I don't know, when I found like the number one doctor for autism and just happened to move into a medical system where they, got access to them, like I should have been like, man, that was really magical that I manifested that without knowing it or even thinking about it, and still got there anyway, by luck, it seems, because it wasn't just me. It was my parents had to move. Then I had to move. Then I had to move to a certain place because I couldn't move in another place. And then all of a sudden it just happened. And it's like, I should have been really thankful and grateful that my, first wife was like in the medical field, knew how to really good at like knowing how to route it and find the right people. Like I should have been really grateful. And I was 100% not grateful because I was so good at resisting.
Right.
Got my medal, resistant.
wear it with honor back then.
I did. Oh, I did. Oh,
Yeah, I hear you. I was the same way. I was the same way. Yeah. I fought. I had a sword and a shield and, the whole God, I don't think I even just had a badge. I had a full freaking banner across my bloody shoulder, I'm sure.
marched it around, hold the flag.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that.
Now it's so gun ho. So it's like, but you have experiences like that, and then you're just like, oh my gosh, like how much did I resist? Like, wow. Like, I really like took the hard path. It's like if there was mud, I went through it. I was like crawling in. I was like,
Seeking it out. Sometimes we all need some of that though, to be able to see the sweeter side of it though, when we all of a sudden come to the realization of like, oh hey,
well,
actually.
see the density and the trauma, the other benefit of it is it links you to everybody else.
Yeah.
So that's how you get your connection, right? Because if all of a sudden everything became easy and everybody knew what to do, then it's like, well, what would you connect on? It's like everybody just be doing their own thing, But it's, you go through hard times in life and then you're like, that's how you connect. That's where all the strongest connections are created with all the things that you go through in life. I mean, that's when you find out like, okay, well, what's the character of people? Well, you don't know that until you go through something that creates character, or at least shows it up. It's when it emerges from you.
True. It is so very, very true. Well, honest to God, I think we should maybe do a series because there is so much we could all talk about in so many different things, even just into relation to what we did here today. But I don't have any more questions coming to mind. Dana, do you have any other questions coming to mind right now?
No, I do not. I mean, I don't know, not in this episode, but if you would be willing to do one at any point in time, you could just sit with it and think of it. If you would be willing to do one live or record it on a podcast, or you're shaking your head no, that's okay.
Oh yeah, we could do it right now if you want.
No, I was just putting that out there. That could be fun, especially if we're doing a series, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm down to do a series because I think it would be really cool for all of us to come back again and you do something live with, with us and and then we can kind of show it and show people how it actually works. And we can again do it by doing it live. I think will give people understanding of like, oh, hey, that's actually a really different, methodology, or I've never really seen that before. And then kind of could lead into some other things as well. And I think doing it live and kind of letting ourselves be vulnerable with it, and kind of putting ourselves on the line just again allows people to really see what it is. I mean, we can talk about it in our own experiences, and I think this is a fantastic start off. But I think to do a little series would be a lot of fun just because there is so much that we could all talk about here.
Yeah, and if you have questions after this episode for Sam, you can just put them in the comments of this episode, and then we can talk about it next time we come on.
Yeah, maybe we'll hit it as like once a month type of deal for an episode to come out. Or if we get real excited, who knows, when we go wild and we're just like, actually, we're gonna do like at least 2. It's up to, I'm not putting any pressure on anybody, but I think it would be a lot of fun. If you're down for it, Sam, we'd love to have you on again and continue to kind of pull out a little series out of this. And it was so much fun to have you here. I mean, honestly, we were actually still pretty much on time, and I love it because it just feels like we got through so much in a very short amount of time, and so that makes it a lot of fun as well. It's just a lot of really good information. I know a lot of people are really going to enjoy this, so thank you for being here.
I'll add one more nugget. It works with positive or negative thoughts.
So are you saying positive thoughts like be amplified?
Well, for instance, if you say like, I can't access, my insight and guidance as much as I want to, like that works. But you could also do the reverse thought just the same.
Okay, cool. So you
So you
can
can
have
say
that.
I can't, or you say I can. Like for instance, if you say like, I want to be able to generate this amount of money. Like you could just say, but and you just say it like, okay, I should be able to get this much money a month, and I just, not able to do it. So when you feel like you can't achieve that thought, that's like a positive thought. Or you do the reverse thought that says, I just can't generate any money.
Got you.
Or I can never make the amount of money that I need to make, for instance. So if you
Right.
say like my needs are met, and like you're just like, but you don't feel it, right? You say my needs are met, but you don't feel it. Like that's the positive thought. The negative thought is my needs can't be met.
Right.
So
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Either one. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. That makes it even better. Now people don't have to go racking all the, all the negative parts of their thoughts.
Yeah. You don't have to sit there and be like, what's the reverse opposite cosine of this other thought in this hyperdimension? Oh my gosh.
That would be way
oh
too
my
much
gosh.
thinking.
Hell. And then you're like, well, but I don't know how to think the other way around. And it's like with this technology, you don't need to.
Yeah, super cool. I think that's fantastic, Sam. Again, thank you for being here with us today because this has been a lot of fun for both of us and really enjoyed having you. So I'm sure we'll get another one rolling at some point in the near future here.
Awesome.
Thanks.